I think it's time to start. 5 minutes have passed to 6. Of course, everyone can join as this meeting will go on. So thank you for coming, all of you. I think, and I wish that you will find this meeting valuable. The whole meeting.
When you make a transaction on the blockchain, the entirety of the network checks its individual ledger and tells you if I'm good for the money, if my balance is enough, and tells you if Dimitris is good for the money. What happens though if one user tries to forge his own copy of the ledger? Well, if one tries to forge his own copy, his own individual copy, by saying add a few zeros on his balance, he becomes invalid as it no longer matches with the ledger of everyone else on the network. So it gets rejected. To wrap up this simplified example of the blockchain, the users of the blockchain network are, of course, computers. And by them participating in this constant record checking process, they get rewarded through a process called mining, which is, of course, outside the context of this example. But these are the basic principles behind the blockchain. It is a decentralized network of computers, constantly reaching consensus on user balances to help real people transact on it without requiring a central authority and without the fees and friction caused by a central authority. That about wraps up what a blockchain is in a very simple terms. Now, if we want to move on to the basic definition of a smart contract, well, we've got this, as we said earlier, we have this secure, this cost-effective, this naturally balanced network of computers, and users are transacting on it. Users are constantly sending coins back and forth towards each other. Can we maybe use this network for something more? Can we maybe automate some transfers on the blockchain? Maybe make things a bit more programmable? We have this naturally digital blockchain, this naturally digital system to stand on. Can we write code to automatically perform a deal on the blockchain? This is exactly the thought process behind the birth of smart contracts. They are scripts, they are code, written by us to automate a deal between two or more users or to store data. They're dynamic little programs on the blockchain. And I urge you to forget the admittedly bad name they were given. Even the original creators of smart contracts generally dislike the term smart contract. And I also urge you to dispel any notion you might have heard about smart contracts. Simply put, smart contracts are a self-contained set of rules that is put on the blockchain by a user, and it is designed to do something when something else takes place, when something else happens. A smart contract is autonomous, as it does not obey anyone else on the network, not even its creator, and only obeys its own internal rules. It is also persistent, as of course it lives on the similarly persistent blockchain. And it is also trustless, as it is absolutely sure of itself and will execute its code no matter what. In this sense, a smart contract is the perfect robot intermediary for a deal. It will never stray from its internal code and does not belong to anyone. In this sense, it allows mutually distrusting parties to use the smart contract to deal with each other. Now, it is certain that smart contracts are creating a bit of a buzz in the industry right now, with more and more fields experimenting with them every day. But still, the sectors where smart contracts are used most heavily are these. We've got, of course, the sector of supply chain management, of course, a huge user of smart contracts where they create a lot of value. We have the sector of decentralized finance. You usually see this shortened as DeFi, as you see here, which in itself is a groundbreaking and newly introduced industry, along with digital asset management or digital banking, still a very heavy user of smart contracts. We've got the energy sector with smart grids, smart metering, and all that. We've got IoT devices and the management of the resulting data from IoT devices, still very heavy users of smart contracts. We've got, of course, the sector of digital identity, healthcare, and the management of personal data. And of course, we have digital democracy using smart contracts. As we note on the bottom of this slide, these are only the most viable current fields for smart contract development, measured formally through research. This is by no means to say that these are the only sectors for smart contract use. And users are actively encouraged to explore new waters. These are not the only fields of smart contract development. So how does a smart contract actually work? How do these autonomous blockchain programs actually work? Here in this figure is the basic flow of the creation and the usage of a smart contract. Let's try to work through this figure together, step by step. It's simple enough. On the first step, say Alice and Bob want to make a deal. For example, Alice wants to buy an apartment, and of course, Bob holds a digital ownership title for the apartment. At first, we identify the terms of the deal, as it happens on traditional contracts. The clauses of the contract, what each party needs to uphold for the deal to go through. For example, Alice, in order to, Alice cannot buy the apartment unless payment is made towards Bob. So we write, or rather we program the smart contract to work by following these exact clauses, these exact rules. These are the contract's internal rules. On the second step, now that we've programmed the smart contract to follow this logic, we have written it, but the smart contract is still unused, unsigned. It is still an empty shell, and we upload this empty shell, this little program, on the blockchain. On the third step, the smart contract is now deployed on the blockchain and it becomes autonomous. Alice and Bob send their assets to be exchanged. Instead of each other, they send them to the smart contract. So, for example, Alice will send the payment intended for Bob to the smart contract, and Bob will send the digital ownership title intended for Alice to the contract instead. On the fourth step, we have completion. The smart contract actually executes its internal code, its rules, and now that it's running the code, if everything is legal according to how it was written, according to its internal logic, it transfers the assets and makes the switch. It actually gives the payment to Bob and the ownership to Alice. And that's how a deal is made using a smart contract. Make note that at no point during this process did Alice need to trust Bob or the opposite. Now, I'm sorry for this. Moving on, and this is a small. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but here's a small sample of what a smart contract actually looks like in pseudocode, just for a taste. Don't be afraid of how it looks. It's still a very unintelligent example of a smart contract. George, my colleague, calls this a dumb contract because it does nothing special, but still, it's a perfectly valid smart contract example. In this example, whenever you send it something on the blockchain, whenever you send an asset on this smart contract, on whichever blockchain, we've made this to work on the Ethereum blockchain, but this is just an example. It just records your donation amount. It records who sent the amount, that's you, and just returns and sends you back a thank you message. That's about it. The other forms down there, the long string of hexadecimal characters below the human readable contract, is still the contract, but on a form that the blockchain sees it. All these three views are the same smart contract, just in different views. The specifics here are, of course, beyond the scope of this introductory course. We just wanted to give you a taste of what smart contracts actually are. Smart contracts are not hyper complex strings of zeros and ones like you usually see visualized, but they are human written scripts. They are programs written to help with a deal in a surefire way. Smart contracts are as complex as their creator wants them to be. In this example, we made it very simple just so we can showcase, but it's still a very, very valid smart contract. Of course, the more complex your use case, the more complex the smart contract is going to get. So there is a point to be made here, however, especially towards the more technical among you in the audience. While smart contracts are computer programs, they are a very special breed of computer program. They are part of a decentralized and distributed network, and therefore special conditions apply. So for example, to offer a few examples on the matter, smart contracts should not be used for number crunching, for complex calculations, which may seem strange to you, because traditionally computer programs are very, very good at number crunching, at complex calculations. But in smart contracts, it gets expensive, and it gets expensive extremely fast. Or for example, storing a user credential, storing a human name, or storing a street address. Smart contracts always leave a permanent historical record. What if the information stored is sensitive? What happens if it becomes sensitive in the future? Again, handling things like that on a smart contract is very different than in traditional systems. Well, so it is that smart contracts should not be treated like traditional programs. Their special nuances require a mental shift. A mental shift is required to think twice before designing them like you would a traditional program. Again, here, a formal education in the field of computer science and the specially distributed system really, really helps, and it helps a lot. But only because as different and as special smart contracts are, they didn't sprout from nowhere. They are still a continuation of computer science and should be approached as such. And this brings us to a very sobering thought about smart contracts, about what they do. Are they a panacea, a global cure, a cure-all? The answer is, of course, not. They are not. They are not a cure-all. Smart contracts are a specialized tool built for a very specific purpose. Smart contracts help regulate and automate transactions. Of course, transactions of every kind, be it money, cryptocurrency, kilowatt hours of energy, or tons of raw steel, but still transactions. And while doing so, they also leave a permanent record of the transaction on the blockchain. It is for this reason that their usage is specific, and specific also are the cases where smart contracts can create the most value. As an old Portuguese colleague of mine used to say, smart contracts cannot do everything, but what they can do, they do so fantastically well. Of course, as in all things in business, maximum value is created by synpraxis. Smart contracts should be used in parallel with other traditional computer systems to support them. This user urges you to avoid blockchain everything mentalities that we so often see in conferences or in business literature. We think that there's not much value to be gained there. And to finish up with my presentation, and before passing on the torch to Mr. Iraklis, this is the structure tree for the upcoming lessons that we have created. Our full course on smart contracts is designed as you see in this figure. It begins with 3 classes lasting 2 hours, geared towards a general audience, no matter their knowledge background. And in these core classes, as we call them, we discuss basic definitions, terminology, basic smart contract concepts, as well as make an introduction to Ethereum and other modern technology in the field. From then on, if you come from a technical background, much like me, we have prepared another 5 classes lasting a total of 4 additional hours presented by me and geared towards more technical viewers, where we explore the programming and the security of smart contracts in depth. We write and we deploy actual Ethereum contracts and discuss real world uses and of course considerations and repercussions, but from a technical perspective. Finally, for viewers with a background in business, we have an additional 1 hour of lessons co-presented alongside with the CEO of Gnomon Informatics, Mr. Kostis Kagelidis, where we charter the European smart contract landscape as it is right now, where smart contracts are actually used in the field in European businesses right now. And we discuss real world viable use cases, as well a very important factor. We discuss risk. We discuss famous hacks and attacks related to smart contracts used in business. And this brings us to the end of my presentation, but I would like to finish by saying this. What I'm trying to achieve through this opportunity given to us through DLT4ALL is to collect all the fragmented information in smart contracts, to collect that, all the information that exists all over the place in parts on the internet, the information we so desperately needed when we first started programming smart contracts or when we started our company, to collect all that information and validate it, curate it, to provide a central place of high quality peer-reviewed knowledge on blockchain and smart contracts, to provide the material for the deep understanding of these new technologies, to, of course, to help with the efficient usage of these technologies in the field, in European businesses. Which is rather ironic when I'm saying it out loud, because we're trying to build a central place for information related to a very decentralized technology, but that's the nature of the beast. We will be happy to have you attend these future classes, no matter your background. It is geared towards anyone, and to explore the technology of smart contract together. I will also be happy to take your questions, but please keep them until the end. There is a dedicated Q&A part in this session in the end. And Mr. Iraklis, whenever you are ready, I think I'm done with my presentation. And that's about it from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dimitri. Now let me start sharing my screen. I need to stop yours. Okay. I'm not sure, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, thank you. So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Very quickly, what I will talk today is about two small proof of concept applications that we have done. One is blockchain, which is the main title of this presentation. And the other is something that is ongoing regarding how we can use blockchain as a technology to enforce transparency when it comes to data processing. Now, very much to put you into context of where we come from, our work is looking at how blockchain is affecting the right to privacy, GDPR, particularly the new article that exists in GDPR, which is the right to be forgotten, an extremely forward and positive positive piece of legislation, but nevertheless, it really is causing quite a few headaches. I'm sorry, I'm not putting my camera on because my connection is not very good, so I think I decided to sacrifice the camera to be able to hear me properly. Now, therefore, what I will show to you today is these two attempts that we have done. One with Andreas Kotoulas, who unfortunately could not be today with us. He's a former master student of mine, and the other is with Bashir Shaban, who is the one who will follow after me. What is really, so the two concept applications, the blockchain and the transparency principle complies with blockchain to allow data to be accounted as and when it's being processed. Okay, now let me first go very quickly to the blockchain. And what is the aim of that project? Was to investigate how the blockchain technology could be altered to accommodate requirements as stipulated by the GDPR, that is making the blockchain GDPR compliant. And we're having in particularly the concept of how to make it compliant regarding the right to be forgotten. The right to be forgotten, for those who are not fully aware of this legislation, very quickly is that all data that the data controller is an entity that is collecting information. One day you may decide that you want to push the reset button. This is the right to be forgotten gives you exactly that you ask from everybody who is collecting information, and you have chosen to ask them to erase all traces of data. And this is an extremely powerful and painful at the same time exercise for the data controller. Okay, so systems that utilize blockchain, this comes into contradiction with the very powerful concept of immutability. Remember, the blockchain, one of the big issues and big pluses of a blockchain is that it has the ability of the immutability. And therefore, this really is extremely powerful when it comes to auditability, that is making audits, and to enforce and ensure and demonstrate beyond doubt transparency. Okay, therefore these systems by default cannot be altered unless everybody agrees to this alteration, as Dimitris quite eloquently just described in the previous presentation. So yes, we want the transparency of a transaction to exist, but at the same time, we want to find a solution that overcomes this obstacle, that is the right to be forgotten. Okay, so these three are the possible solutions that we consider in those cases. One is the extremely painful and almost impossible solution, but in the realm of possibilities, it is always a solution. That is to investigate how you could alter the blockchain architecture so that the data becomes editable, i.e. where everybody agrees that this data is becoming editable. This is an extremely lengthy, painful process, and therefore automatically we threw this away as an option. The other thing that is being used at the moment is to ensure cryptographic techniques that really make this data vanish, that is to the naked eye, even to the members of the blockchain network, but nevertheless the data is there, and this is really problematic because whatever is there potentially can be discovered. Yes, cryptography can really provide powerful solutions, but these are man-made solutions, and therefore potentially we always can find other man-made solutions that can hammer and crack this cryptographic technique. And the other thing is, the last one is what is called the hard erasure, as opposed to the previous one, which is called the soft erasure, because the data is there, which means that nevertheless here what you have to do is use an external database where you store the data, and from there you can erase the database, erase the contents of that database when it comes to the right to be forgotten. Okay, so the reason such a solution is possible on permissioned and permissionless blockchain networks, and therefore this can be applied and implemented in a number of available blockchain networks such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Hyperledger, without any change in the source code of these networks. And this is extremely important. Okay, so really this is the main characteristic of our solution and why we have chosen, as opposed to the previous ones, as I explained earlier. So let me provide you some highlights of this architecture and this solution. Is that this, whilst the data is stored on an external databases, nevertheless, the hash value of that data is also stored on the blockchain. And this is where we ensure that although the data can be altered and deleted at this, nevertheless, the hash that contains the value of that data, because it is contained in the blockchain, it cannot be changed. And therefore, we compare to see if an alteration of the data has happened without our authorization. This is extremely important because that guarantees that no modification has taken place without our desire. This is something that one needs to take into consideration. So if the individual requests the data to be deleted, the personal data is being deleted from the external database. Also, the salt is deleted as well. That means that no traces can be found. Therefore, if a brute force attack occurs, in order to extract the initial value on the hash value stored on the blockchain, that becomes an impossibility. Regarding the right to be rectified for the rectification, because remember that this is another right. When data is incorrect, we can have rectification of the data. Then the update data is inserted as a new data, and a new block is created on the blockchain. In order to keep track of the verification step, the database links to the new block with the old block through its hashes. So we keep a full trace of all the blocks that have been occupied. Therefore, we demonstrate clearly if there's a need to, how the data was initially stored in the network and how the data has been altered. And therefore, one can see exactly all the alterations. Okay, so that's it really, as far as I'm concerned. And now Bashir will take place and he will present his work that he's currently been doing as part of his MSc dissertation in the MBIT course of City College, where he will demonstrate how we use the very abilities and characteristics of blockchain in order to ensure that all transactions is recorded and everything happens exactly as to one has agreed in a smart contract, to link it back with the previous presentation. Thank you very much for me. I will now pass the control back so that Bashir can take over.
Thank you very much, Irakli.
Thank you. And
Bashir,
any discussions we can have later on.
Bashir, the floor is yours whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, I mute myself.
Yes, we can hear you, Bashir. I can hear you.
Okay, so the project we are working on
You
now
need to
is
share.
a
You need to share the
continuation to
screen.
previous. Yeah.
You are not sharing the screen yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Great,
Now
now we
see.
see you.
Do you see? Okay. So this is the project that we are working on, and it's a continuation to what have been done previously for the blockchain, when you can delete personal information, personal data from the controller database. The project mainly will be compliance with transparency principle of GDPR. You know, GDPR is a lot of it's like around 8 main principles, and each part of this utilization of blockchain is trying to solve a problem, a piece of the puzzle or piece of the problem. So we are trying to solve the principle of transparency. In this age we are living now, it's the internet age. It's we all know that it's advertising supported. All what we have, we see for free and we enjoy in the internet is supported through advertising. And companies are trying to collect data on each one of us as much as they can, so they can use target marketing for each person. Data mining and this technology that they are using is basically invading people's privacy, and it's contradicting with GDPR principles. So transparency control or managing is what we are trying to do, as at least to make the data subject aware about their data, where it goes, who have it, how it's processed, at least to know what extent personal data are and will be processed. So as we have mentioned before, that blockchain, Dimitris mentioned and Pericles, that blockchain is immutable and cannot be changed. So storing any personal information on the blockchain is considered to be bad practice. All the personal data should be processed and saved off the blockchain. But what we can use as blockchain build on their alignment in securing and controlling data. GDPR principle is to control and to secure personal data, and blockchain is by design designed to control and secure data. So building on this specific strength of blockchain, we are trying to build a solution for this problem. So we will not prevent marketing or data mining, which could be useful for customers also as it's useful for companies. But we can respect people or data subject privacy. So what our project is called the consent, is based on this small diagram where the data subject, he can provide his personal data to data controller. Data controller will save the data on his database, and a consent receipt, which is in the next slide. I will come here. This consent receipt will be received by the data subject. It will provide the data controller address, the privacy policy that they were agreed on, a timestamp when this data were collected, the ID of the controller. So this will be on the blockchain available. The data subject can, anytime he wants to see, he can check it by its ID or number. Then now, if data controller wants to process is that I can send the data, personal data off the chain to the data processor. Again, now, if the data processor wants to process this information, he has to produce a process ID or process indication, and it will be saved on the blockchain and indicating what kind of process happened and if it is comply or not with the consent that was given before. The processor should, what data category he has processed, what purpose of a process, and purpose address, the processor address. So in this consent, anytime the data subject want to see what happened to his consent, what kind of processing happened to his, he can just go and type his consent number, and all the processing that has happened based on his consent will be available, and he could check if anything went wrong, if something that he did consented for. As an option, this can be also supervised, or the authorities can also intervene with this blockchain system and could monitor or could notice or supervise the processing and the data, the controlling process of this whole concept. That's basically the project that we are working on now. And that's a sample of the receipt that could be received by the data subject, which has all the information about what kind of processing has happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Bashir. As always, you can post your questions in the chat box, and then we are going to take them over during the Q&A session. Now I'll give the floor to Faros Leodaris, the lawyer of our team, to give us a practical perspective of blockchain, real use cases, and maybe some legal info regarding the technologies. Fano, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Let me, if you can just let me share my screen.
Mr. Bashir, if you could stop sharing your old presentation.
Bashir, yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. There we go.
Still blocked for some reason.
You can see you now, Fano.
Yeah, but I cannot share my screen for some reason. It says it's disabled.
Dimitri and Corina, is there anything to do to help Panos' screen?
Yeah, we're looking into it. Try now, Mr. Iraklis.
That is Panos.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, got it.
There we go.
Yes, no, it's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so you can see me, you can see my screen, right? Because I use my hands and I need them. All right. So, right. So I'm an attorney based here in Thessaloniki, Greece. I'm also licensed in Cyprus. So I have a dual certification. Now my law firm and the law firm that I work with in Cyprus, we work a lot with blockchain activities. Specifically and mostly stemming out of the fact that I also teach the regulation of cryptocurrencies at the University of Nicosia for the MSc in digital currencies. So arising from that, and for the past couple of years, and so for this meeting, you know, I took some time to go back and find, you know, a lot of our clients and, you know, what we're doing with them for blockchain. So what I have done here for today is I have put in some screenshots from these projects, and I'll be discussing with you what these great people are doing on blockchain. So just an introductory note, we will have time to discuss this in the end. So for anything you guys would like to discuss, you know, feel free to actually do this later on. So let me just start here. Okay, so cryptocurrencies, you know, I put that in there because it's the obvious one. You know, everybody knows Bitcoin, you know, everybody knows it's based on blockchain. So I'll just go ahead and just tell you, you know, some of the things our clients are doing with cryptocurrencies. So one of the things we are doing with cryptocurrencies right now is we are dealing a lot with trying to find how can we get all this value that's stored in crypto and put it into use in investing activities. And be careful here. I'm not saying the use of cryptocurrencies as investment assets. I'm talking about the use of cryptocurrencies as an investment into a company. So right now, we do have, in Greece at least, two directives stemming out of the basically the body regulating the accountant activities that has provided us with some sort of guidance, not us lawyers, but accountants specifically, so as to how we would depict the possibility of using cryptocurrencies into a company. So what does that mean? That means that, for example, right now we're handling a transaction where somebody has made, you know, a good amount of cryptocurrency from trading because he was one of the early adopters. So like right now, from the early adopters that were handling Bitcoin transactions, there's a lot of people that want to invest this money. And I'm not saying, and I know it has gotten such a bad name in transactional activity. There's people that have been doing cryptocurrency transactions who are, they're not something weird. You know, I do cryptocurrency transactions. I actually get paid in crypto. That does not mean that using cryptocurrency is something peculiar. It is now something that is being done day to day. Therefore, what we want to see is, and we're trying to figure this out, even, you know, with our legislation, is how are we going to allow these investors to get into companies in Greece, not by providing money or services or any other tangible or intangible assets, but to use cryptocurrency to enter these companies, okay? So it is a very, very interesting case, you know, how we're doing this. And this is something that will trouble us in the coming time because we're expecting also AML legislation to pass in Greece that will also accommodate a lot for cryptocurrencies in the coming month or so. The latest information I had from the Hellenic Capital Commission was telling me that. So that's one thing, you know, investing with cryptocurrencies in companies. Now, the second thing is obviously, you know, something that everybody knows, and it's pretty simple, you know, cryptocurrency transactions. That's easy. You know, it's the same way, you know, if you were using any exchange in the world to transact in euro or Turkish lira or dollars, it's the exact same thing. But that's a very simple use case. So in this situation, and I think Dimitris wants me to talk about that, We actually tried the first cryptocurrency fraud case in Greece last year. And it was really interesting. And although I do not want to get into details because of the persons that were involved, I will tell you that it was very interesting to see the court and the prosecutor, listening to the lawyers and listening to the defendant and listening to the specialists we brought in to explain how this system of cryptocurrency transactions work, to make sure that they understand that my defendant, my client, was actually exonerated in the end, and was released. So, Dimitris, I don't know if you want me to say more about that, but we can talk a little bit about it in the Q&A later on. So, blockchain and cryptocurrencies are an interrelated value. So, cryptocurrencies, we can also say, and you can hear different points of view here. You can also say about cryptocurrencies that could be tokens. So, I have a client. It's a great guy. He has a company in the US, but he's Serbian in descent. So what he did is he will be creating a game, an online game, I think it will be, an MMO. And what he wants to do is he wants to create a cryptocurrency. And be careful here, it does not mean that cryptocurrencies are always, these huge cryptocurrencies that are Bitcoin. That's not necessarily it. Anyone can create a cryptocurrency. It's not that difficult if you have the means to create it. And he wants to create this token, this cryptocurrency token that the user will be able to use within the game. It will probably not have any value outside the game, but he wants to create it that way. So for example, if you're playing this online MMO, you could be buying with this token, swords. You could be buying, armor. You could be buying any number of things that you could be buying within this game. Now, I'm assuming some of you have played, mobile games. In many of these mobile games, we have these little digital coins that you see. These are not cryptocurrencies. These are digital, so to speak, currencies in game. The difference between a cryptocurrency and a digital currency is the fact that crypto implies that there's cryptography in place. So in crypto, that's why we're discussing about blockchain, because there's a need to always verify the transactions like the other speaker said before. Okay, so that's why there's a difference between digital currency and cryptocurrency. It's not the same. So this is another use case, creating a cryptocurrency to use as a token within a game. I also have a great client who has, this very novel idea, which we'll be rolling out in the coming weeks in Greece, that wants to create a token to use within a platform for beach beds, believe it or not. Now in COVID-19, you would want to be able to register, and have your beach bed registration before. So what does this guy want to do? He wants to make sure that he gets prepaid for all these amounts, give you the token, and you will be able to use it, in a minimal, how can I say, in a less price that you will be paying if you went directly to the place that you want to go. It's a very peculiar platform how it will work, but the bottom line is that cryptocurrencies, and that's what I want you guys to leave with this today, is they're not just used for these huge peculiar transactions and for a number of other probably illicit things. Cryptocurrencies and as tokens in this sense can also be used in other ways to facilitate transactions that do not necessarily require a bank. Okay, so that's one. Now, cryptocurrency mining. It was mentioned before. I think it was from the first speaker about how we are creating and how we're performing cryptocurrency mining. Okay, I do not necessarily agree with the wording mining, because it implies that cryptocurrency is somewhere hidden and we're mining it. That's not how it works. Blockchain networks, and specifically, for example, the Bitcoin network, the Ethereum network, it needs what we call gas. Believe it or not, that's what we call it, gas. And it needs gas to ensure, that the blockchain continues to work, that there's still activity going on, to ensure that, that transactions are being deposited on the ledger, to ensure that transactions are being recorded, to ensure that transactions are being decrypted before and then encrypted again and then put on the blockchain. So in order for this to happen, there's nodes around the world that what they do is they allow this system to work. So they're providing this computer power, because each computer has a specific set of power. You know, you have your CPU, you have your graphics cards, and what they're doing is they're providing this power to the blockchain network, depending on which network we're talking about, obviously, and they're providing this computer power for the network to operate. So this gas that we're talking about is basically, in a way, the payment for these operators to keep providing this computer power. They're getting a small amount in each transaction that we do. So we said before that, sure, we want to cut out the middleman in many transactions, and we do not like to have transaction fees, but still, even in this way, you do have this sort of transaction fee. Now, what does my client do here? Now, GX Blocks is a company in Greece. It's in Athens, actually. So the guys have this great idea, and they have also started, and we'll be rolling to production soon enough. I think it's in September we're doing that. And what they're doing is exactly that. They have this platform that they have created, and they have these huge, physical platforms. You know, they have, these racks full of computers and, full of CPUs doing a number of things, which as a lawyer, personally, I don't really understand, to be honest with you. But bottom line, what they're doing is they have created this platform to perform cryptocurrency mining for their clients. So what we're doing is, as a company here, and that's what we advised, obviously, the client, is we are providing the client computer power for them to use in order to perform cryptocurrency mining. Okay? So this is a project, and it's really important, that we're actually doing today. Okay? So this is happening right now in Athens. And the key here will be, we will be using sustainable energy in the sense that we have some plans to see if we will be getting into, I think we're doing dams, some abandoned dams that we will be using to ensure, that we have sustainable energy backing this cryptocurrency mining activity. And just a pointer here, to perform cryptocurrency mining, you need to have a very, very strong, very powerful, better the word, computers to execute it, which means consequently that you will probably need a huge amount of energy and electricity to actually perform it. Okay, so that's why the sustainability aspect here is really important to us as well. All right. Now, this is something that you guys were discussing as well before. Now, one of my favorite blockchain projects is the Aria project. So Aria is created by a company in Cyprus called Decentric. Now, Decentric is our client, and what they're doing is they have created a blockchain platform, believe it or not, that is storing health data. Now, it is very interesting how it works, and we'll probably discuss it also in the Q&A, because I don't want to, looks like I could take up too much of your time. But bottom line is we had to do a very, very intense process, to find out how we would be doing this and how we would be able to, how can I say this, to do this the right way, bottom line. And what we did is, we had to do this huge legal opinion that I wrote, which is like 20 pages or something, that we had to find out, are we okay in proceeding with putting medical records on the blockchain? Should we be doing something else? How are we handling this issue? Then we had to do this ridiculously big data protection impact assessment that we had to do with the company. And it's such an intensive process to execute. And we're not even at the point where, we went to the commissioner because we had enough, how can I say this, we've had an unofficial, so to speak, way to speak to the data commissioner in Cyprus, because this Decentric is based in Cyprus. So we're right now in the process to, execute the project and make sure we go to the commissioner and get the stamp of approval that we're okay. And it's very difficult, and especially what was being said before by the other speakers, how do you deal with the right to be forgotten? And it's very peculiar how we're going to be doing it in Aria, and honestly, it will be a surprise. So we'll see if it comes back at the Q&A. But bottom line, again, this is a project that is active right now, and it's also active, and it has, one of the biggest hospitals in Cyprus. I think I can say it's the American Medical Health Center. They're great, and they have jumped at the capability for them to be in the pilot and starting out. So this is something really good, and I do feel that blockchain can be a force for good in this area, specifically because it can provide the user, the data subject at the end of the day, to have this sort of control of their health data, which right now we can argue that it's probably not really there. Okay, so this is a local one. This is in Thessaloniki. The good people have come together who we have worked with. They're a great, great team. Now, what they have done is they have created this blockchain-based platform. Now, so they have found this niche in the market, which is amazing. So the team has found out that, one of the main problems of ticket sales is the scalping. So, you buy a ticket, for, let's say, 30 euros. And then as the time comes to get closer to the date, these prices skyrocket. So event organizers did not have this ability to know, to allow them to, how can I say this, to stop the scalping, because they were losing money out of it. So the guys have created this sort of blockchain infrastructure that is backing this platform in the way that there's no way after this platform to falsify your ticket or to transfer it without the platform being involved, because this is a blockchain how can I say architecture system. There's no way for you to be able to alter the QR code because it's continuously verified. There's no way you can change it unless the platform decides to change it themselves. And in this way, what they're doing, they're providing value to event organizers, which may or may not allow scalping, but only if they are allowed to get, their own cut out of this activity. And in that way, so you would go right now with the QR code on your phone, but you don't want that. So what they're doing is they're creating this sort of blockchain-based live QR code, which, always changes. It's never the same. So the person having the ticket, they have to actually be the person who purchased it. So there's no way you will screenshot your QR code and give it to someone else. So this is a great, great example of blockchain, providing excellent value to businesses. And these are local guys. They're engineers here in Thessaloniki. They're great, and I'm confident that they will be doing great things. So this is one more. And the last one is from one of my colleagues who's a lawyer in Australia. So we're teaching, there was Mark Tui, that's his name. He's a lawyer, and we're teaching together at the University of Nicosia. And we're teaching the class that I told you before about regulation of cryptocurrencies. So Mark, not only being a lawyer, he's also a startupper. And he has created this platform, which is basically trying to facilitate the point of origin and the tracking of goods. So you would buy, for example, cheese at the supermarket, by scanning it, with one QR code or with anything else, and you would know, the entire, how can I say, the entire trip that this cheese, where it was, when it came, who touched it, who didn't, and you would be able to see, if it has been falsified. You'll be able to see if it was tampered with. You'll be able to see a number of things. So TPSX3 was the name of the company, that Mark, founded, and was the name of the solution, which has been now bought off by AdLive a couple of months ago. And now, as you can see here, which is basically how blockchain is being used and how IoT comes into play, how this infrastructure actually works, and it works good for the business and for the end consumer at the end of the day. Okay. So especially, for example, in our country, in Greece and in Cyprus, where we have a lot of point of origin and protected products, it is very, very important to be able to have this sort of blockchain infrastructure to ensure that the end consumer across the world knows that this product that he's paying a lot of money for has had, the treatment that it should have had, and that it was not, falsified somewhere in the middle. Okay. So thank you for your attention and time. That's it from my part at least.
Thank you very
Fano.
much.
Thank you very much.
We can move on to the Q&A section. So if you would like any of you asking questions, and I will unmute them to talk about anything you would like to ask.
Corina, if you will allow me, I would like to remind everyone in the audience that there are no bad questions. There's no question too simple or too hard. And George will now send, also write some emails if your question is more complex or longer. Feel free to email them in the Gnomon emails or our personal emails. We will answer them there. Don't worry anything about it. I also, sorry, I forgot about Theodore's question, if I remember right.
Yes.
Yes, there was a question. Let's start with a question from Theodore Marasescu. He asked, as I say, he asked if we can hold identity on the blockchain, if you can use blockchain to hold identity. Yes, in fact, we can, and we can do so really well. This is actually what we're researching right now. There is a sort of caveat. There is a drawback in holding identity on the blockchain. It is a huge, there's a huge onus related with it. There's a huge responsibility related with it. If you know, most identity authentication services provide ways to recover your identity once you lose access to it. On a blockchain, it's rather tricky. As the previous speakers also said, blockchains are powerful. Smart contracts are even more powerful. This power comes with great responsibility also, as Spider-Man's uncle used to say. So if you lose access to those credentials stored on the blockchain, you lose them permanently. Also, there's a little bit of trickiness involved in actually storing the credentials on the blockchain. You need to double encrypt them. Decryption is kind of a convoluted step, but it is very possible. And I can tell you from personal experience with having worked with some partners and colleagues of mine on the subject, there are products right now on the Neo blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain that do exactly that. You can log in to services using your blockchain wallet. And that's about it.
Great. If anyone would like to share something. Okay, so we've got one question from Isidoros. One of the issues on blockchain is that energy consumption involved is huge. Is it possible for somebody to comment on this issue, if you would like?
I'd be happy to take that question if anyone else, if no one else wants to.
And maybe Thanos then can also.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to start off with my minimal experience on the subject, this is a question that plays around with in a lot of circles. It gets mentioned a lot. Blockchains, for me, are not wasteful in energy. Generators, electric generators, don't have an on-off, a 10% or a 20% or a 30% switch. They're either on or off, or full load, half load, or no load at all. So this energy, when they arrive on the substations, extra energy gets recirculated back into the generator, or not the generator itself, I'm sorry, but the substation. This is from my basic work experience with smart grids, with electric grids. Excess energy should always be there, just in case it is needed. And when unused, just recirculates and recirculates in the network, causing friction, and of course, slowly dissipating through frictions. What I've come to realize through blockchain protocols, and especially the mining process, which takes up so much of this energy, is that blockchains are a way to utilize this excess energy. I would like to also say that when a network takes up too much energy and it can't go on anymore, most networks have a variable difficulty setting. So the more computers you have wasting energy and mining and all taking part in the process of mining, the harder it gets for these machines to get to actually get rewarded. So in my opinion, it is not a question of wasting energy, but blockchains actually utilize excess energy, are really good at utilizing excess energy. That's my opinion on the subject from what I've seen with my minuscule experience with working with smart grids, and that's it.
Mr. Leondaris, would you like to add your
I think
comments?
you mentioned an example with a company.
Yeah. So like our people, you know, GX blocks, you know, we touched on that as well. It was not easy because, so for example, you want to be able to be sustainable as much as you can, okay, obviously. And it's not only the environmental impact, it's also, you know, the fact that it's so, you're putting so much strain on a national grid when you're doing these activities. And so I would say how we are solving it is we're trying to create, you know, a synergy with, and I don't want to get into details on that, but we're trying to create synergies with local partners in many countries. Right now we're talking to Iceland, Norway, I think we're doing Northern Russia, because they have inherently very, very, how can I say, low temperatures. Because the main issue is always, it's not you know, the power that you need to power, you know, these computing activities. It mostly has to do with how you're going to be able to freeze these computers. And so we're trying to choose these places to do our activities like that. But in Greece, what we have tried to do, and we're finding it's really difficult to work with public enterprises and with public public administration, is that they do not understand what we're trying to do in many cases. So we have told them, in Greece, we have many abandoned dams, believe it or not. They're not being used anymore. They have been left out of the national system for many reasons. So we were thinking of doing an investment in, and I'm saying we, me as the legal advisor of the company, because I'm involved. And we're trying to do a very, very big investment in some of these dams. But we were doing this, you know, before last year's elections with some of the I think it was municipal authorities. You know, elections came, you know, the administrators changed. So we're trying to put everything back together. So I don't know if this is good for comment, but yeah, I will definitely say that it's something that everybody takes into account when getting into this. Sure. At least companies. I'm not sure if private individuals are doing that. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So Nikos Babams would like to know, is the 51% attack of the blockchain a realistic threat? Who would like to answer that?
A 51% attack on the Bitcoin blockchain has been the talk of the town for the last 5 or 6 years. It is theoretically possible for 51% of the miners to come together and attack the network, as in try to only mine their own transactions or hide other transactions or try to forge their own copies of the ledgers. So it is certainly possible, but there are 2 things that, in my opinion, have stopped this plan in its tracks. First of all, if 51% of the network miners, if 51% of them come together and attack the same network that produces rewards for them, they devaluate their own positions. So this is one of the major reasons, in my opinion, that it hasn't happened yet. And the second reason is, or rather the second result of that is that for the past 11 years that the Bitcoin blockchain has existed, it has presented the biggest honeypot, the biggest reward pot for a 51% attack. And it still hasn't happened. And it is becoming increasingly harder for the attack to take place as miners get dissipated outwards, and as more miners come into the game. It is actually one of the core choices of the Bitcoin protocol to keep the block number small, is to dissipate or act as a mitigation measure against 51% attacks. Right now, the total valuation, for the Bitcoin blockchain is around, George, correct me if I'm wrong, around 200 billion USD, $200 billion. And it still hasn't been attacked. Well, this proves some sort of safety by example. This sort of proves a certain safety of the blockchain. In other blockchains, in smaller blockchains, in blockchains where there's not a lot of miners, 51% attacks have happened. They were usually the result of groups of miners trying to completely erase or de-evaluate a blockchain as part of a coordinated attack by another actor, by another blockchain. But that's about it. On big blockchains, you're pretty much safe.
Great, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm also getting a couple of private questions from Panagiotis Ketikidis. I'm not sure if they're directed at me personally or if it's a mistake. Okay. Yeah, there's more questions coming up.
Yeah, let's work on a queue. I think Mr. Londaridis, the latest question is very much suited for you.
Yeah. For blockchain tech startups, I think it is difficult, and I think that it's mostly because they don't understand what we're doing. So, like right now, we're trying to get some money for one of the blockchain startups we have in Cyprus, and the first thing we do is, you know, we go to a meeting, and it's insane. You say the word blockchain, and the first question is, so what are you doing with Bitcoin? And we said, we're not doing that. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's nothing to do with that. So like right now, I think it's a bit difficult because there's this association with Bitcoin. And at the other end of the spectrum, private investors are like that. The difference is now we're seeing VCs, venture capital funds, which want to get into the blockchain game simply because it has the key phrase blockchain in it. So you'll see private investors, they hear blockchain, they think Bitcoin. You're seeing VCs right now. Hold on, I'll explain. You're seeing VCs that want to get into the buzzword of blockchain, and they just want to dive right in. But you don't want a VC that does not understand what you're doing. So it's really difficult to be able to get money from an investor that you want to have as a partner with you. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I feel like for example, there's some companies who are doing good stuff with blockchain, and they're utilizing to the best of their ability. They're using the technology to do great things. The example I told you before about ticketing is one. The example I told you about health data is also one. So these are the example I told you about logistics, which I feel would be a great implementation, because I was asked not to give my ideas on that. I will just say it right now, Dimitris, I'm so sorry, I will take the time to say it. I do believe that the most amazing, yeah, I know you're laughing, but I just wanted to say it. If somebody finds a way to incorporate blockchain infrastructure, okay, with the system that has to do with the import of goods with countries outside of the EU, okay, the customs system, that would be the most amazing thing you guys can do. Honestly, it would be a way to be able to track, you know, commerce all over the world, and would allow the customs agency to do their job better as well. Because in that way, they would feel sure that once the shipment left Hong Kong, for example, it was never touched until it came within the EU. All right, that's just an idea, but I do feel that it's something on the blockchain on the supply chain is a great implementation. And I'm very sad that we're not doing that in Greece right now, because we are one of the biggest ports of entry of third country commerce. You know, from the east to Turkey, you know, from the ports, you know, China. So it's something we should be doing, and we're not. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anyone else has a question?
There was a small follow-up question by Theodore Manasescu again.
Something regarding smart contracts, I think.
He asked if he can mock a blockchain if you wanted to develop.
Okay.
Certainly, you seem to be coming from a technical background, because yes, some years ago the situation was a bit of a Wild West situation. If you wanted to develop smart contracts, you had to pay. as Mr. Leontaris mentioned earlier, smart contracts use up gas. Gas costs money. So new developers usually need to borrow money or ask for money from the network itself in the form of cryptocurrency to actually use as gas to test and develop their smart contract. Nowadays, mock-ups of these of the blockchains, clones of the blockchain itself exist. They're called test nets or private nets. And in Ethereum, for example, there's 3 test nets. On Neo, there's 2. So you can, they're copycats, they're exact copies of the main blockchain where you can test, develop, and get free money and develop your mock-up before actually deploying it on the main chain, before actually playing with real money, if I can say so. And that's it. There are mock-ups and there are ways to mock the blockchain really simply too. It's not the Wild West anymore in smart contract programming.
Okay, thank you, Dimitris. Thank you, Theodore, for your question as well. I can't see any more questions here. So we will wrap this up. It's 7:30 already. It was great meeting you all. I would like to ask something for whoever wants, of course, to take a print screen to show, to disseminate our activity and our event. If anyone would like to open their video, it would be welcome, of course. And, oh, hello. Great. Okay, thank you so much.
As a final note, Corina, correct me if I'm wrong, all the
Yes.
material and the slides and the presentations are going to be freely given out, of course. You can check our sources, you can check all the material that we have presented here. And of course, we'll be happy to take on personal questions to the emails provided.
Yes, of course.
Yes, correct. Also, as I said earlier, this is an event of within a series of events that will be coming up during 2020 and 2021, with the overall aim of having a face-to-face learning academy focusing on all of the 8 modules that we have designed so far. So we will be keeping in touch with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Good to be here.
Thank you, everybody.
Presenters and to the excellent audience. And we will be keeping in touch. Yes. Thank you very much to everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.